And welcome back to another edition of Lay It on the Table, the Southern Board Gaming there we go again. Holy cow. Welcome back to Lay It on the Table, the Southern Board Gaming I'm just dead today. This is the Southern Board Gaming podcast that puts the accent on Southern.
There it
Third
is.
third try is the time. Third time is the charm. Man, that's what I get for doing these things sober. Hi,
I know. I was gonna say it's
Well, hi everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mahaffey. Clearly, still struggling with something that I should just write down and put in front of me and read it to you all. But I feel like if you're gonna wing it hard, and I wung it this morning. That's pretty dang sure. As always, my partner in crime.
James Engelhardt here. Apparently, well, I don't have to struggle through that setup. So I just sit here every couple of weeks and just my heart, breaks for you every time, Jeff.
I'm really kind of hoping that it just becomes a thing that's what people will tune in for, is just to listen. Does he get it right this time?
Yeah.
I don't think
that's it. That's part of the, it could become a drinking game for people.
That's true. I think that might have been the problem. I wasn't drinking before I started, so I don't know. So gosh, I feel like it's been a month. Because it's been a month. I think last time we were here, we talked to Christina Stiles.
We had some great conversations with a couple of people. Yeah.
Prior to that, we talked to Richard Fortuna. By the way, Jeff Kahn is this weekend in Charlotte. I did not make it up there. I will get into all that in just a little bit. But it does go through, I believe, about 4 or 5 o'clock today.
Today being Sunday the 13th.
Today being Sunday the 13th. And then
as the Pogo comic strip used to have it, Friday the 13th falls on a Sunday this month. So
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So, but it's nice to be back and kind of getting into some of our other topics, but we certainly hope to have more guests and even maybe just a little side segment that we do with somebody that we can kind of insert into this at some point.
Yeah.
Along the way. But as usual, let's jump into it and talk about what's been on our table, I guess, over the last month, which mine's going to be pretty sparse. But go ahead, you go first.
So is mine. It's been we went through midterms and had a bunch of projects and grading. I'm still in the midst of grading, but it's done pretty well so far. But a couple of fun ones that I've played recently with my students. They turned in a major paper and I said, hey, let's take a little time off. So I set up the next paper and I said, okay, here's what we're going to do next. We're going to play some games. So we played Similo. Do you know this game?
I don't.
So it's a little, both of these, we played Similo and we played the game, both co-ops, because I didn't want them going, at each other's throats in the middle of, 9:30 in the morning.
Sure.
So Similo is a really small themed deck, and you've got like fables and you've got animals, and it's a very basic kind of like a very stripped down version of code words, let's say. And so there's one person who's giving clues. The rest of the team is trying to not pick the wrong card, and the person who's giving the clues has only one way to reveal the clue. And so they'll put down a card either sort of straight up and down, so sort of vertical, like a thumbs up. It says the target card is like this card. They can't say anything. And then people try to take a card out that is not like the card they just put down. Or you can put it horizontally, like a minus sign, saying it is not like this card. And all that's on the card are like pictures of animals, pictures of, people from myth and fable. And on the first round, you take out one card. Second round, you take out 2 cards. Third, you take out 3. 4, you take out 4, which will leave exactly 2 cards left. And on the last round, hopefully the target card is still on the table and the team takes out the last standing non-target card and you win. But that's kind of tricky to do. So super fun, easy enough to teach very quickly. You could play the game now. But it also kind of makes them think, wait, well, how is this like these other things? Super great to then hear my students discuss what they thought that was like. And then we played the game. One of my students had played it before, and that afternoon after we played it in class, one of my other students went out to Target, picked it up, and played it that weekend with their friends. So I felt like that was a big win.
So that was they picked up Similo, or they picked up the game?
No, they picked up the game. Yeah.
Because,
So,
when I was looking at this, just to kind of, prep myself for it, I noticed that the game came out a while ago.
yep.
And so it's one of those that I think is pretty interesting of note just because it's still in production.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's got some good. It's a nice evergreen title,
nice.
and I feel fairly strongly, actually. I don't just think this vaguely, that the graphical makeover that they did
Mm-hmm.
is what has kept it alive, because otherwise it was going to sink beneath the waves very quickly.
Got it. Got it. So
Because it
there's,
started off as these bloody skulls on a black background, and you're like, why? It's so unfriendly. Why would you do this? So then they got a different designer, made it all pretty, and it's been flying out of the shelves, off the shelves, and out of the doors of stores for years since.
yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
So I know you have one that you want to talk, a third one, but before you get there, I'm going to throw in one of mine because
Please do.
I want to
I
use
was
that
gonna.
as sort
Yep.
of a segue. But so we've been playing Ark Nova, and I know I've talked about Ark Nova before. The last month we haven't played a lot of games. Part of that is you can tell by the raspiness of my voice. I had a little bit of a cold. It was not COVID. It was probably the flu. There was fever involved, etc. And we also moved my mom from independent living into assisted living, and so it just took a lot of there was a big time suck that
Sure.
took some games off the table. So, but last week was Extra Life, which is the big fundraiser for children's cancers that they do nationally. And of course, the friendly local game store here in town, Carolina Tabletop Games, had a fundraiser page, and they were just off the hook. They were open for 48 hours.
Wow.
And so Rob, the owner, and I, we had talked about getting together and teaching him Ark Nova because he was going to be working at the store on Saturday and he was going to be done at 4. So Dale and I started brushing ourselves up on the game because it's funny how you learn a game and then you put it down and you go do something else and you come back to the game and you're like, no, wait a minute.
Okay, I know what these are for.
What do
I
we
don't remember
forget
exactly.
here?
Yeah.
So we've been playing it. And of course, last weekend we didn't get it over there because Rob was like, yeah, this place is off the hook. There's no place to sit.
Okay.
So
Well, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, good problem. No worries. So, so we're gonna hopefully get in there next weekend and teach them the game. But so we've been doing Ark Nova, just trying to brush ourselves up on it. And it's one of those games where I know you have talked a lot about how you and Laura play games, and there's that game that you always win, and she just doesn't want to stop until she can beat you. That's it's kind of where we are at Ark Nova.
Okay.
Dale had her best game 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
And I still won 14 to 13.
Oh man.
So it's just like this, kind of thing. So anyways, that's the only game that's really been on our table, but we're hoping to, I think we're going to play one more today and then we're going to clear it off and start fresh with something new.
So did you find something, have you found new things in Ark Nova once you've taken a break and you come back, playing a couple more? Is it different?
Yeah, we've discovered a little bit more how the mechanics operate because there is that engine building feel to it.
Right.
That there were some things that it's taken a while to understand. So for example, there's certain icons that allow you to get certain cards out and we realize that there's more ways to count those icons than we initially understood, was part of it. And as well as just sort of, seeing that you can do things at scale and grow and, there's something you can do like a lightning action where you get something right away or you get something recurring.
Right.
And so it's just learning those nuances and because it's one of those games where it's really slow to get your reputation going. And then all of a sudden it goes really fast.
Okay.
Because you've built up the engines to the point that all of a sudden, in fact, when we played, what's today? Okay. Friday when we played, I realized if I play this next card, the game's over. And I was looking for anything I could do not to end the game. I was trying to figure out when I did it, that would be a big enough move. And in that particular version, I won plus 22. She lost negative 22.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was the way the game is scored and stuff. It's possible that negative score.
That sounds Jesus. Yeah.
So anyway, so Ark Nova, there's a lot of complexities to it, and the thing is, we've always played it as a 2-player game, and because it's just 2 of us, and so one of the reasons we want to play with other people is that there are some elements in there that don't really work if you're playing a 2-player game.
Okay.
So, for example, when you get a macaque can pilfer from somebody, but there's a certain parameter by which you pilfer, and it's like, but in a 2-player game, it's just not worth it. So, right. And then there's a venom thing that you run into, and those generally play better at 3 and 4. So we just kind of ignore those, just because, we do.
There's a lot of some of that kind of stuff reminds me of like Evolution or other games where you've got an attack mechanism, and if you've got 2 or 3 people to choose from, then maybe they've set up the thing that you can attack. But if it's just the one person across the board, then you just get into this basic fight space where they're like, well, I'm just not going to do that thing that gives you what you need.
Right.
Yeah.
And that happens.
Yes. And then you just sort of turtle up, play some kind of defense where they just don't get, you just keep crushing their dreams, really. Is what
exactly. Exactly. So it looks like you had one other on your list. Do you want to talk about that?
It did, yeah, because and this will be, I think, the transition that you're looking for here. But so we got Wingspan back to the table because, of course, the Asia expansion plus Nesting Box stuff is happening. And so we jumped in on that. So ticket number 6,700 out of apparently about 10,000, and got in on that pretty nicely. And so we've been sitting down and just sort of rediscovering this game that we started playing at the beginning of the pandemic. Just kind of like, hey, here's a game that has enough meat on it that it keeps me interested, beyond some of the sort of really basic, like, I don't want to play Ticket to Ride yet again. Let's do something more interesting. And I see, the Wingspan has its limits, but it's still a super fun, quick game. And it's been nice to return to it, see the birds we know and love. I've been getting my ass handed to me quite handily by Laura, but it's still been, again, like we were saying, is that you come back to it and it's like, oh, wait a minute, what do we get to start? What are we doing? Oh, yeah. And then you just slide right into the patterns and the rhythm of it all. And you're like, I got this. And it's a nice sort of relaxing as we get towards the end of the semester as well. And just a good, it's a nice one because we can leave it up and, while just right after Emerson goes to bed, we can just sit down and play it. And it takes, I don't know, 45 minutes at the outside for the 2 of us because we just know what we're doing. So, and of course, we're also waiting for, because we jumped in and got the Asia plus Nesting Box all at once. We have committed because it is, I proposed to Laura using Wingspan, and it was the first game that we really sat down to play together, like a lot, that we both really loved. So, and we're well over, 100 plus plays at this point. And so it's been, so as we're waiting for the new Wingspan materials, it's been fun to go back through the old Wingspan materials.
Well, that's totally fair. Well, first of all, I got to tell you, I'm very jealous because the day that it dropped,
yes,
it was 1 or 2 in the afternoon before I could do anything with it. And by the time I got to it and had it I had it in my shopping cart and I was checking out and it sold out.
Ooh.
So I was able to get the Asia.
Okay.
And then I was able to get the subsequent reprint of the Nesting Box. Because I got to tell you, I was like, I sent immediately to Jamie email, help. I was doing this, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry. And he's like right away, and not even missing a beat.
Wow.
Joe, I'm sorry. Go ahead and reserve for when the reprint comes up. And it's already come out. That came out this week with his update. So he didn't waste any time getting the update out. And so I've got I've got my orders in for the Asia and the nesting box, but they will come separate, which actually is fine with me.
It's fine, yeah.
Because I got the viticulture with the expansion in the crate, and
Nice.
And then I've seen the box. Now I don't have the box, which is fine. I'm not
Sure.
a obsessive compulsive completionist. Yes, I am. I'm very much.
Oh, I
that
was going to
person.
say, yeah.
So anyway, so it was. But the nice thing about it was just being able to email Jamie right away and he gets back to you right away, and he's such a really nice guy.
Wow.
Which kind of jumps in, and you'll see I've added something else to the list here as I go. So Jamie actually published a blog post this week called "Why I Quit Twitter." It's not you, it's me, and I encourage everybody to read it. And part of it is that I think I like what he says here. I try to be a kind, positive, loving person. Emphasis on try. And I try to be a force for good. And he says, this has nothing to do with about who the new owner is or isn't. It's more just about how he feels like he behaves when he's on that platform. And I thought, it's interesting that he's that self-aware, because I feel like he could have said, "Sorry, sucker, you should have placed your order sooner."
Yeah.
But instead he was really nice. Like, "Gosh, I'm sorry, Joe. This is our solution. These were just a finite thing. Just be patient and thank you so much and go ahead and nice about it." Now, part of it is, we're customers and we're trying to give him, we're just trying to hand him our money. That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah. He's happy to have that happen.
Exactly.
Well, and as one of the things I was interested, Laura and I were talking about this at lunch too, that, you have a predetermined smaller, and at 10,000 units, it's not entirely tiny. But you say, so, the customers say, we would love to have a big box where everything just goes into it because we know we're going to get all the Wingspan stuff. And if you're, Stegmeyer, another business person, you're like, people say that, but then you bring it to the market, and are they actually going to buy it? It turns out, yes, they will. So just a sort of interesting way to judge, put your toe in the water and say, is this really where I want to be swimming? Or should I just towel off and keep heading down to find somewhere else?
Well, and I think for him, it's he's got enough data to say, okay, this is how many Scythe big boxes I sold.
Right.
And Scythe was one of those that had a cult following, has a cult following.
Yep.
Different variations, different expansions, etc. I don't know how successful the viticulture crate was for him, honestly, because I haven't seen that for sale separately. Doesn't mean it's not. I don't spend a lot of time looking in the shop here. I can go here while we're chatting and see if I happen to see it in the shop, but I don't think I do. I don't see it at all. So I wonder if that was, people who like viticulture and all that, maybe they just, nope, there it is.
Okay.
But he still has it with Viticulture World in it.
Okay.
That's one of the ways to buy Viticulture World. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. It's still there. Sorry. I should have looked further now. Oh, wait. Nope. Hold on. I take it back. It says sold out.
Okay.
So it is sold out. So the question is, will it ever come back into stock? Okay.
Right. Well, and that's one of the interesting things about this hobby, particularly this sort of version. I mean, Stonemaier and Wingspan, those are huge. Well, Wingspan's a huge seller. Stonemeier's a small company. I get that. But, when we're talking about games like this, there are many times there are games that I was very interested in, and they have a print run of, 3,000 to 5,000 maybe. And there's 3,000 to 5,000 goofy people like myself out there who are like, yeah, sure. And then the company's small and says, you know what, it's not in our interest to, it took us 2 years to sell through that. And so we're moving on.
Well, and
it's, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, even there, I mean, it's one of our favorite games is Kohaku. And the original publication had these nice acrylic tiles. And the second printing only has cardboard tiles.
There you go.
And it's like, it's just not as satisfying.
Sure. But it's an interesting thing about, it's an interesting part of this hobby that, if you don't, if you're on the fence about something and you decide, oh, I'll pass, and then 2, 3 years later you think, oh, I should have gotten that, it's not going to be sitting on a shelf somewhere, or it'll be in some really old FLGS, and it'll be on there reduced for quick sale back in a corner someplace in a town you never go to. So,
but that's also where
and you might get lucky that way.
That's where the aftermarket comes into play. I mean, I told
Yep.
you about buying the original print of Kingsburg by using the BGG marketplace. And then as I look around, as I've been doing a number of things here in my home office that have given me more shelf space for games. But you know me, I'm going to grow to the size of the fishbowl that I'm in. So that's how many more games I'm going to get. Yeah. But I keep looking at the games like, okay, what do I not play? What should I be putting on the marketplace or finding a way? On the one hand, there's certain things I'd like to put on a marketplace. On the other hand, I kind of feel like, you perhaps you see in those neighborhoods where the people put the little houses up and it says, take a book, leave a book. I almost want to do that with board games. Take a
the game, little the little library kind of thing.
Yeah. I think there should be a little game store, little game library.
Very fun.
I don't know. So other things in the board game news that I took note of today. Some of these are just not news, and they're just things that sort of interested me. So we started talking about Ark Nova as the game that Dale and I have been playing, and one of the first things I read about it when I first saw it was it's like Zoo Tycoon coming to life to the board. Well, there is now a Zoo Tycoon Kickstarter for a board game. It's very different. Because I looked at the Kickstarter page pretty intently this morning, just to sort of see what's different. It's there's very meeple heavy like Ark Nova, but there's more Offspring kind of icons here that tells me they're going a little bit different path with it. And I'm kind of mixed about it because I haven't backed it. I have it saved because there's 10 more days to go on this, and it's reached its funding goal, so it's going to happen. But part of me wonders, even though Ark Nova was probably inspired by Zoo Tycoon, is this like, oh, too late, we missed the boat? Because I get recommendations all the time for all these other bird games, and I don't get them.
Oh yeah,
because Wingspan is just so darn satisfying. Why would I want to go play an imitation?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of gonna watch it a little bit, but I'm just not there.
I'm always interested too because it's a kind of cartoony. I was looking at it as well. It's a very cartoony look, and it seems to be like, oh, look at how cute and desirable this thing is. And then it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on beneath the chrome, and with a lot of different dials, and by dials I mean places to put your meeples, cards to draft, mechanisms on top of then it's a tile laying action going on, as well as getting animals as linked to how you're going to establish your zoo as a conservation zoo or as a moneymaker, or these different kinds of things. And I think if you're someone who walks into a game store or just zips past and you see these cute animals and you pick that up, it feels like it's setting up expectations for a very different experience. So, and I kind of contrast this in my head as I was looking at this stuff this morning with the much older classic Zularedo, which was far more streamlined. This is sort of a more classic early Euro kind of, with an I pick, you choose, putting down tiles, and that's about it.
Well, it's funny. There is a trend I've noticed of video games becoming board games.
Yes.
And I don't know how I feel about it yet. I was never a big aficionado of Zoo Tycoon. My girls played it growing up. They had the original, video game. They had a lot of fun with it. I'm sitting here seeing it's got 230 animal meeples, which tells me it's going to be a hefty box. I don't know the publisher for no other reason than I don't think I looked at it close enough to see if it was a known publisher or just somebody who got the licensing. Because I would imagine it either has to be the person that originally owns the intellectual property, or they got permission from somebody.
Yeah, and
is my thought.
Did not look familiar to me. So, but then the world is full of stuff I don't know. So.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I can see that Mark Dürr. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing it right, because this is a Switzerland.
I see it too.
Thing, but I don't know. I don't know if it's just they got the licensing for it or not. So I'm just kind of curious about it. For no other reason than it got my attention because of the Ark Nova thing, and I think Capstone Games that does Ark Nova. They also did New York Zoo. I think they kind of understand the aesthetic and the gameplay, because I kind of
the gameplay is key because there's so much that you can just hide under stuff if it's computerized.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like, I look at the series like Ark Nova and New York Zoo.
Mm-hmm.
Same Capstone Games, different designers, etc., but they almost rhyme. In the sense that it's almost like I could play Trails or I could play Parks. If I wanted a simpler version of the game, I might play Trails. If I want a more complex version of the game, I could play Parks. That might be an oversimplification, but that is just sort of how it strikes me. And I mean, obviously, when we talk about Kickstarters here in a minute, it's not like I have this high and mighty opinion over what I will and what I won't back, but to a degree, there's got to be something that is inspiring me to do this. And I don't know. I'm just not sold on this one yet. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's not like I'm not holding anybody back with this opinion.
Nope. It looked like it was doing just fine without you.
Speaking of Parks.
Okay. Yes.
Keymaster Games has got a new Kickstarter out there called Chicken.
Okay.
And I got to tell you, this is another one of those that I am just, I used to think, wow, anything by this artist, I'm just going to go out and get.
Okay.
Anything by this publisher, I'll go. This one does not speak to me at all. It's roll chickens, hatch eggs. It's a dice game, and I guess I'm not against dice games. I guess it's just I'm not. I don't have enough experience with them to say I'm interested in this genre, other than Kingsburg, which I guess is a dice game.
It is, but this feels more like a sort of almost kind of traditional push your luck, super light. It looks.
Yeah, it's 10 to 20 minutes playing time. It's
yeah. This is just let's take it to the beach, and when we've got a time between when as the showers are coming through this afternoon, and we're sitting in the pub waiting for the rain to pass, let's play a couple rounds of chicken.
Yep. It's
like playing Liar's Dice or Can't Stop or something like that, where it's just the dice.
Yeah, it just didn't. I don't know.
I wondered why this was on your list. I was like, okay, Joe, what you got there? This seems a little light. What?
Yeah, well, it was just one of those things because it was from Keymaster. It's from the people that give us Parks and Trails and all these games, and I'm sure it's a different designer. I say
Scott Olms. I don't know. Let's see what else Scott Olms has done.
Yeah,
but he's a Tiny Epic guy.
Okay, well, I like.
So my guess is, he was like, hey, I've got this. I mean, y'all are in Target with Parks and Trails and stuff. And I've got the super wacky light dice chucker that isn't really a Tiny Epic title. But I bet it could go to Target super quickly, and y'all have that connection. Let's make something work. I mean, that's a conversation I'm having in my head, telling myself, but it seems reasonable.
Well, and it's kind of like that dog won't hunt game from It's a Southern Thing. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. No, because that dog won't hunt is Liar's Dice.
Yeah.
With sort of a redneck spin on it.
So I don't know if this is Liar's Dice quite in the same way, but I mean,
no, this looks more like again, more pushing your luck, like Can't Stop or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like I said, it just
Like you go, if you keep going, you might lose everything, and at some point you could have gotten more, and you passed the dice instead, and now Laura's winning. But yeah,
I noticed you said now Laura's winning.
yes,
Okay, just checking. I want to make sure
yeah,
I heard that correctly.
yeah. I should have kept rolling
Why
dice.
I oughta.
Yeah, but no.
So the other one I have on the list is for no other reason than our mutual friend Chris Keener backed this as a Kickstarter.
Oh, did he?
And he absolutely is excited about it. And I noticed that the folks at Birdwood Games had some extra stock, and they went ahead and put it on sale. And so sometimes you know how it is when a Kickstarter ends, you can get the deluxe edition for a limited time. So I went ahead and got it. And I just thought, number one, I knew that, I could obviously play it with Chris, but it looked like a pretty good game, and it looked like it was pretty interesting. So I'm glad to see that it's come to market, and you can go and they have nice little discounts if you're a first time.
This game is Dog Park, for in case we haven't.
Yes, I'm sorry, Dog Park. Yes, Dog Park, and it's all about. I like actually, if you look at the mechanic of it, it's really interesting. You have to, it's 2 to 4 player, or 2 to 4 players. There might be a solo mode. I didn't really look at that closely, but you are you're using your reputation to attract dogs to your dog walking, and then you use the resources that you have to put them on their leads, and then you go for a walk. And as you go for a walk, you gain more resources. And the idea is you're trying to have the best reputation at the end of the game. And I thought
it's a little engine builder, it sounds like.
Yeah, but it's interesting because there's a lot of variability, because there's cards that talk about how you would go for a walk and what resources you might get. And then there's also certain types of dogs that if you collect them in a set, you get certain bonuses. So there's just a lot of, it looked like it was clean and neat, but also kind of had a compelling thing. Because there's always there's the bird game, and then there's the cat game. Well, now there's the dog game.
I was going to say, these are super cute puppies too.
Yeah, the artwork on it is really nice. And
adorable. Look at all the good dogs.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll just go with that.
But anyway, I went ahead and got the collector's edition. I thought that was
nice.
A good opportunity because it was on sale. And like I said, they have a little discount for your first time Birdwood purchase. So anyway, I just thought it's not really news, but I do like it when a Kickstarter starts delivering and then you miss it, because when we get into our Kickstarter discussion, I'm going to have a story where I missed it, got it from eBay, and then discovered that there's a reprint, and I'm like, "Whoa!" Probably could have saved a little bit of money. So earlier we were talking. There's one other thing I wanted to get into before I get into that. I was in the favorite local game store, friendly local game store yesterday, Carolina Tabletop Games, and I was checking in on my copy of the Dragonlance campaign setting for D&D, because I collect the alternative covers, which you can't see off here to the side, and it's due to come out on December 6th, and I figured, well, we'll probably talk again before then, but I thought I'd just throw that on here as a pending release, because I know that Dragonlance is one of those iconic brands in D&D history, very similar to Strahd, in the sense that having something come out of the archives like that and be brought back to life is really kind of cool. So
like that and like Forgotten Realms and these ones that you sort of, I was thinking about from the 80s, and it's interesting. I'm glad that we landed on D&D briefly, because in class the other day we were having 2 readings about Dungeons and Dragons. One is a 1990 social sciences article about it turns out that D&D players are not more alienated or socially awkward than other human beings of their same age and cohort. So that was kind of fun. And the other one was a guy who's writing a book to kind of explore whether role-playing games are a kind of performative art form, and using performance theory to kind of think through it a little bit. And So I brought a stack of RPGs. I've got Grimm the RPG and D&D, and I've got an old AD&D handbook from way back with the side staples and all that kind of stuff from way back. And then a couple of little indie ones, and was passing all of these things around. One of my favorites is sort of like Kiddo's first RPG, which is Cat, where you play as house cats defending the family at night from small invasions. So they were like, wow, all of these are role-playing games. Like, what is it? What is a role? But then, the D&D book is one of a stack. And I'm like, how do you learn all these rules before you play? It's, well, you don't. You don't have to. You can. You can sort of choose what level you want to. Like, well, what does it look like? So many questions. It's really interesting. And so I said, well, okay, it goes like this. It's the end of a long day. You've been traveling, and you walk into a pub. In the over in one, there's a table with about 4 or 5 people having dinner, and there's a guy sitting over by the fire with his heels kicked up, and there's a guy at the bar, cleaning a glass with a rag. What do you want to do? Like, oh, I want to go talk to the guy by the fire. Okay, so you go, and we just kind of started this little theater of the mind thing. And at first they were a little confused, and then they just kind of, like, the whole class just kind of leaned in. And I was thinking, this is why you play D&D. This is why someone says, well, why did you play it for 4 hours? I'm like, because you're telling this story. I can watch you physically lean in. Yeah. So that was a sort of a gratifying thing to watch and to do. And I thought, since we were talking about Dragon
No,
Knights,
I
D&D
love that. I mean, that's one of the things that, I think that what people have come, the reason people gravitate to this game so much, or this genre is a better way to say it. And I think this is kind of cohesive with what we talked about last time with Christina and others along the way, is that collective storytelling is so ingrained in the human experience. Every culture on the planet has their origin mythos that comes from collective storytelling.
Yep.
And I think it's so embedded in our DNA that we're drawn to it organically because of that. But I think if you look at, in particular, the last 3 years of our existence, where we have been compelled to be less sociable. And I think, we've already talked about the pandemic phenomenon on board games, that people craved that social interaction, even if it was in their own bubble, that the board games became the catalyst for that. Yes. And I think, our D&D game is remote because where you live, where I live, where other people live. But if we were in town, being able to get together collectively in person, although it's a bigger burden on the DM, maybe.
Somebody else has to bring the pizzas.
Just because of all the stuff he's got to bring. But no, I think I love that there's this, group of late teen, early 20 people that are just being drawn to that. Because, if you think about it, I'm Mr. Snob about, I D&D, 5e, Pathfinder, all these other things. But the reality of it is that, there's Call of Cthulhu, there's Vampire the Masquerade, there's actually one on Ragnarok that came out a couple years ago that's more of the Norse mythos. The thing that gets me, though, what I love, though, is the elegance of the 5e system.
Oh, yeah.
And when you have a new game system comes out that is not tuned to that, that's a little bit more complex for me, just because I'm so ingrained in this. It's kind of like, it's like I play golf every day, and now we're going to go to putt-putt.
Yeah. Well, no, and I think this is, we've talked, I think, occasionally about gaming literacy, right? Like, sure. Okay, so this is an engine builder. I know what to do. This is that. You go like, so this is a game that runs on Fate. This is a game that uses, we're going to use, it's a dice pool with exploding dice. It's this is all, it's all narrative driven, or it's a set of adjectives, and there's, and once you sort of play a bunch of them, then you're like, oh, okay, so this is sort of like that, that's like this, that's like that. But like you, my RPG literacy isn't nearly as strong as my board gaming literacy. And so I look at the same thing like, ooh, that sounds like the new Marvel game that's coming out. Like, this sounds a little, but it's only 3 dice, and you just have to track a little bit, and you're like, oh, well, it can't be that hard to figure out. So,
Well, here's my fear, and I'm seeing a lot of articles on this, and this is kind of around the Dragonlance thing because there's been rumors about Dragonlance coming back to D&D for a while, and there was some controversy over the authors and would they come back, would they not come back. I'm not going to get into that here because quite honestly, I don't know enough of the specifics to be cogent on the topic. But if you're interested in it, you can certainly Google it. But what I've noticed as Hasbro has gone through their last few fiscal cycles during the pandemic and realized what a profitable asset Wizards of the Coast is.
Holy shit, D&D, we can sell. Yeah.
and I've noticed that, between Magic and which is making a tremendous comeback as well, not my game. But it's a big profit center. And now I'm beginning to see, are they going to try to put rails on it? And what I mean by that is, it's kind of like, well, I'm going to probably say something controversial here. J.K. Rowling does this whole series on Harry Potter where she borrows liberally from Mythos and she borrows liberally from C.S. Lewis and all these people. And then she wraps her intellectual property copyright around and says, yeah, this is mine. And I'm afraid that we're seeing some of that in D&D. And I hope it doesn't come out that way because I think goes back to the collective storytelling. Even when I have the module, like when I did Ghost of the Salt Marsh in Eberron for the store prior to the campaign that we're doing now, I looked at the book as a framework and guideline, not a chapter and verse. You must do it this way.
Right.
And
well, that's the kind of nature. Yeah. D&D one hopes.
And now that you guys are in the castle of Ravenloft, where there is a lot more content that I have to work from to make sure that when you get to where you're going to get to, it's a satisfying experience. I'm also trying to figure out what's happened before and what can I put in here to make it more interesting for our story than just, well, I've read the book, so I know on page 143 we're going to experience this, and therefore I don't want anybody to be able to do that.
Right.
And to be quite frankly, I don't want to tell that story.
Well, it's much, it's a lot more work on the DM, but it's a much more satisfying, I hope, experience, not just for the DM, for the players especially.
So, speaking of Strahd,
that's what I was thinking.
And speaking of Twitter, where we started this little section, so there is a channel on Twitter called Strahd von Zarovich. And it's a guy. He basically likes to tweet as if he were Strahd, and he will respond to people as if he were Strahd. Well, with the new acquisition of Twitter by Elon Musk, they've put some rules in around parody accounts. And one of the rules is you have to have the word parody in your name. So instead of Strahd von Zarovich, it should be Strahd von Zarovich, parentheses, parody. And he's not sure if he's going to get caught up in that or not, because I'm sitting here thinking, well, part of that is they don't want you to impersonate, like, I don't know, a real person. Or Elon Musk, or I don't know, Kathy Griffin. I don't know. So I'm not really sure if he's going to be a target, but the way he's talking, it's almost more like, is he going to be a target because of the rule from Twitter's perspective, or because, and this is going to go back to what I was talking about before, is Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast going to go, yeah,
that's RIP.
Yeah. And so it's going to be really interesting, but I mean, he's funny. And I told him, I said, listen, I responded to one of his tweets and said, all they have is the tome. They haven't found the Sun Sword. They don't have the Raven. They don't have any of that stuff. and the mad wizards on the mad coastal wizards are casting mind blank every day. They're fine. You're fine.
That's all good.
But he may be Tumblr bound. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I would think, personally, I think about all the influencers that they do reach out to. I mean, obviously they're in bed with the Critical Role people. Right. I think Jenny D has been involved in a few of their things. And obviously they have their own series of live gaming where they use a variety of well-known influencers in the space. I would think an account like this would be a great influencer space because it keeps people engaged in this intellectual property that probably goes out and buys a Strahd book.
Oh, yeah.
So I would hope that they would view it in that light.
Well, and this isn't on the list here, but there are several games that are coming out. I think I was hearing somebody talking about My Shelfie, for instance, that are coming out to, Tabletopia or other digital platforms. You have to get your you have to sign up for this platform to begin with to get access to it, but you're not buying the game digitally, right, to play. You're just allowed to play this, and it's like, hey, come here and play this game, and we bet you're going to like it, and you're going to go and buy a real live copy of it. And so I think about that in terms of people like the Strahd von Zarovich or other influencers, where the company says, you know what, it is much better to play along than to look like an asshole and try to crush somebody who's having a good time and who other people enjoy using our stuff. Let's see how we can pull them into the family there.
Well, it's funny because, obviously we're doing Curse of Strahd as if it were set in Appalachia.
Yes.
Before we even started that and doing it on YouTube, I reached out to their legal department and said, this is my plan. This is what we're going to do. Is this okay, or do I have to make some modifications?
Yeah.
And the response I got back was basically the Wizards of the Coast licensing that says you can use this. So there was basically it's like an OGL, if you will, that right. if you look at our first couple of broadcasts, you'll notice I actually have that on the graphic, just saying, hey, this is produced in accordance with yada, 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 just because I feel like that's important because we're having fun with it, but we're not disrespecting it.
Oh, no, quite so.
We do have one character that has an F-word problem. I blame their parents, but
Yeah, their parents are awesome, though.
So anyway, no, it's fine. So
speaking of other tabletop RPGs, shall we shift a little farther down the list there?
Sure, go for it. Where do you want to go?
Well, this is your Kickstarter.
Yeah, so this is my. So it's been a month, so don't judge me.
No judgment.
I was just kind of going through the Kickstarter things that I'm paying attention to, and now there's certain things like we talked earlier, like, hey, if this designer does something, I'm just going to buy it sight unseen. And of course, Frank West, and maybe we talked about this one before, I can't recall. Frank West's Race to the Raft was released, and this is the last in the series of Isle of Cats.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I got to get this.
Sure.
So we got the Isle of Cats, so we got that backed. And then I had seen Wonderland Wars. A friend of mine got it, and my wife is a big Lewis Carroll fan, and so I thought, oh, this is great with the minis and stuff. And I'd missed the original Kickstarter, and I went and I was able to find a copy on eBay.
This is that story.
This is that story. I wasn't. Did I pay more? Yeah. Did I pay ridiculously more? No. I'll leave it there. But then I noticed there's a Wonderland Wars expansion, of which they're also going to do a reprint of the original one. And I'm like,
damn it. Yeah.
So I need to learn to be patient and think, if it was really successful, will there be?
Well, but that's the hard thing to judge with this industry.
Yep. But anyway, there is an expansion for Wonderland Wars that's just the Shards of Madness. And I was like, well, I'll just go ahead and get the expansion. because I don't like a
playing
complete
it safe there.
Set. Yes, I do. I need to have a complete set. And then
previously discussed.
And then speaking of complete sets, Canvas has done their third and final. That'll be a trilogy, so it'll be their last one that they're doing there. So I had to back that because these are all.
And did you buy did you back like a set of 3, or was it the third in the set?
I already have the other 2 sets. I had backed the first one, then I backed the second one, and so yeah.
Those tres. Okay.
But the one that you were driving at was the Monty Python tabletop RPG, and I was really back and forth on this. Yeah. But they added this really compelling looking game with it.
Oh yeah.
And that was the
I saw that.
The little trick for me was like, I'm very interested in that. Because it's called Fetchez la Vache, I think is how you would say that.
Fetchez la Vache.
Fetchez la Vache. See, look at that.
Yep.
See, look at you knowing how to speak French.
Well, no, it's the line from the Holy Grail.
Okay. Yes.
Because Fetchez is, they just made that up. La Vache is cow, so yes. So, fetch the cow, but Fetchez la Vache.
Yeah. So that one was the real driver for me. So I ended up backing it.
That'll be super fun.
Yeah. But and there again, but this is the thing. It's gonna come with dice, but it's a completely different system. It's not 5e. It's gonna be a different kind of thing. But I think it's so unique because it's driving back to that movie that it will be sort of its own thing.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of what I'm thinking.
And it should be hilarious.
And worst case scenario, it'll fit nicely in the collection.
There you go. Yep.
So that was that one. There's 2 others that caught my attention. One was the Ocean expansion. We got Oceans. We didn't get it as a Kickstarter. However, I run the Discord, and I'm also an administrator of the Facebook channels for Carolina Tabletop Games, and a lady had offered the owner 3 Kickstarter copies at just Kickstarter cost, or a discount. I can't remember exactly what it was, but anyway, I saw it and and he was kind of on the fence as if he was going to do it or not because there was 3 copies, and I sent him a text and I said, "Listen, if you do this, I'll buy one of them." And so we got Oceans that way.
Cool.
And really like it. That was the one we took to the meetup with the people. There's a gaming group that meet up every month over here at the Waldhorn, which is a German restaurant. So Dale and I went over there, and we it was one of the games that we took, and one of the guys had actually been a play tester for it, so we pulled it out and played the game, and I learned so much playing in that environment because just different strategies. You see the way that people play them and how they score them, and so it was a very satisfying thing. So we thought, well, I don't know if I'm interested in Evolution, which is not a prequel. It's just
right. It's just a same system, different.
They don't marry together. They're not required. You don't need one to have the other. Whereas this, I thought, okay, they're doing an expansion, and then this last one, it's there's so many interesting games that are coming out of the Australian continent.
And this is survival of
the fattest. It's got some great minis and some great gameplay elements that were there. And I thought, this is one of those. This is the kind of thing that just sort of fits my aesthetic of certain games.
Well, it's super fun looking.
And I love it. I love that where they they invest in the minis too. I think that's always we enjoy games like that. And I thought this one kind of had a little bit of Everdell feel. I was going to say
it does have a little bit of Everdell, yeah.
With the cards and a little bit of Meadow maybe, but then the minis just really set it apart, I thought.
Yeah. Well, the cards look like it's as cute and like unlike the what's the zoo one we were talking about earlier? Um, the Zoo Tycoon. This one feels like the art lets you think it's going to be a little more stuff going on because the animals are anthropomorphized and they've got like looks like carrot weapons, this kind of stuff. You think, this is going to ask me to do a little bit more than Zoo Tycoon. It just looks hooray. So yeah, I'm interested.
So
It
anyway,
looks adorable.
I just thought it was kind of neat.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, is there 11 days to go?
Okay.
11 days.
Right, people. It's the 13th now.
So yeah, it's funny. It's usually this time of year that I set up next Christmas, hopefully. And I say hopefully because you never know if and when it's ever going to go off.
That's true.
Because I got to tell you, I think I've told you this before. There is an Indiegogo. Have I told you about my Indiegogo experience?
I don't believe so.
I have
Lay it on me.
I have only bought 2 things on Indiegogo. One is that book from my friend Jennifer, who was published last year.
Okay, groovy.
And then the other thing was Crown's chess, rather.
Okay.
And they have been racked with problems, and I still don't have it.
Wow. And how long ago did you pledge for this thing?
Before the pandemic.
Damn. All right.
And I've noticed it was interesting. They're the only, and maybe this happens more often than I know. I'm not a big Indiegogo user, but this particular campaign was run on Indiegogo and Kickstarter concurrently.
Okay.
Between the two, they raised about 1.3 million.
Nice.
And they've been communicative in the sense that, hey, we got the prototypes. We don't like the prototypes. So we're having to redo them. Hey, we're doing this. Oh, now we're stuck waiting to get to the containers. Oh, now the container ships. There were very logical kinds of things.
Okay.
But there's still just a lot of, we feel like we got our money taken kind of feel. Like they're just coming up with these excuses and they're just, I don't know.
Okay.
So I'll be curious to see. I sent him a note this weekend just to say, hey, can I get an update?
People are curious.
But if you I'll put the link in there under miscellaneous if you want to take a look at it and just sort of see what some of the people are saying about it. Because if you go to their updates,
I mean, it looks super sleek.
Yeah. So I'm just hoping.
Chess people are fetishists, so yeah.
Well, and for me, it wasn't even that. I mean, I enjoy chess, and I realize that the only copy of chess that I currently have in the house is the Harry Potter Wizard's chess.
Fair enough.
And Dale doesn't play chess, and so I thought having this would be kind of cool because you could take it out to the park and set up a game and.
Sure.
So I like the idea of it as well. But
yeah,
we'll see. I like to think of the best of people. So I'm really hoping that I'm wrong. And it's just truly that, an unfortunate thing. And, they're just trying to get it across the line. Cause I've seen that before when I backed the book on Kickstarter about the Korean mythology 5e.
Cool.
Did I ever tell you about that?
No, but it sounds awesome.
So it's called the Koru Hall of Adventures, and it's all based on. It's 5e. It's written by. I'm gonna mess this guy's name up really bad. Aurelien Lane, Aurelien Lane. He's a French writer who lives in Korea, and
interesting.
I backed it, and I got to profile a character. And so the character in here is based on my brother Doc. That passed away.
That's awesome.
So my brother is immortalized in this particular campaign setting. But what was the reason I'm bringing this up is that this was a guy who did a Kickstarter by himself.
Oh, that's heavy lifting.
And at the very, very end of it, it was like, him sending me a note. Please confirm your address because I am mailing you this.
Wow.
And it showed up. So, yeah. Wow. So I've, that prior to that was the most stressful 5e experience or a Kickstarter type of experience I've ever had. So I'm hoping that it's just a matter of that.
Yeah.
Because this guy was really cool. I mean, it was like, okay, you won this. Let's talk about the character. And we did this back and forth kind of thing, which was kind of neat.
That's awesome.
Yep. So that's all I got this week.
That's the wrap for me as well.
All right. So we'll be back. I assume we'll be back in a couple of weeks because
I hope so.
Next weekend is the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And then the next Sunday would be the weekend of Thanksgiving. I'll be around. I don't know what your plans are.
Laura will be taking Sky back to, at the meetup place. Mm-hmm. And then I will be here running the session of Emerson, the toddler game. So solo. So I will have a window.
I didn't realize there was a solo mode.
Oh yeah. It's a solo mode. There's so much to say.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. All right. Well, as usual, my name is Joe Mahaffey, and I am not bored. I am bored gaming.
I am James Egelhart, hoping that all your tiebreakers break your way.
We'll see you guys next time on Lay It on the Table.
Bye, y'all.